this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
How do you make chicken nuggets like 7,000% better? Short answer, you let Taco Bell make them. Long answer, start with all white meat chicken nuggets, bread them in crunchy tortilla chips, and serve them with Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. Yep, that's Hidden Valley Ranch mixed with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. It's exactly what it sounds like, and somehow even better. Simple math, spicy results. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell. A brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
Welcome to a special edition of The Middle Podcast. I'm Jeremy Hobson. One of the first guests that we ever had on The Middle when it became a weekly show about 2 years ago was the former governor of Illinois, Republican Jim Edgar. For much of my upbringing in Champaign-Urbana, he was the governor, a Republican who got along with people across the aisle, including Chicago's famous former mayor Richard Daley. Edgar had a measured, even-tempered approach to politics that made him a deeply respected figure. He was, you could say, a man in the middle, and he sadly passed away last week at the age of 79 after a battle with cancer. One of the things politicians in both parties have praised him for is his bipartisanship and his ability to listen respectfully to those across the aisle. Here he is talking about that on The Middle in 2023.
Well, now, my wife would tell you that I argue more than I should, and on all things, not just politics. But again, I go back to the listening is extremely important. And if people think you're going to listen to them, then they might go along with some of the things you want, because at least they got a chance to give their point of view. That's very important. One of the things, my experience with staff and everybody, you have to all make them feel like they have their input. In the end, you may not follow it, but they've got to feel like they had a chance. And if they feel like they had a chance, then they're going to be much more apt to accept what the final policy is. So, again, I just think that we need to listen a lot more and lower the voices. I probably ought to do that more myself.
Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about Jim Edgar and his legacy, his style of politics, and whether his approach is still possible today. And joining me is someone who's covered Edgar's entire political career, Sean Crawford, longtime Illinois politics reporter, now managing editor of NPR Illinois. He's in the capital, Springfield. Sean, it's great to talk to you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Well, and how is Edgar being remembered in Illinois? I thought it was interesting, just in this moment that we're in, that J.B. Pritzker, the current governor, a Democrat, had some just really nice words to say about him.
Yeah, I think you've heard that actually from several Democrats and Republicans as well. Many people who may have disagreed with Edgar, not only back when he was governor, but certainly in years since. Jim Edgar made it clear that the Republican Party was heading in a direction that he wasn't a fan of. He ended up saying that he voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and Kamala Harris in 2024. He was not a Donald Trump fan. He was what we would call a political moderate, and I think that's showing up more in the types of accolades he's getting now that he has passed. You're right, the J.B. Pritzker, the governor, certainly came out with some glowing remarks about him, and again, so did many others. He's viewed, I believe, as a statesman, and I believe he's viewed as somebody who, again, could work with all sides.
And what were some of the examples of him reaching across the aisle, working with all sides when he was governor?
Well, one thing, to be honest with you, he actually was very even-handed, I believe, when he was governor. But one of the things that he was known for was being called Governor No, because he inherited a kind of an iffy situation with the state budget. And what Jim Edgar did do by the time he left office was he had righted the ship. He had gotten the state's finances back under control. A lot of that came from some budget cutting and a lot of saying no to state lawmakers who wanted different projects, different funding for different programs. Most of them, they come to the Capitol, and this is the way it is everywhere. They come to the Capitol. They want to take something back home. They want to show their constituents what they've done. And he was not always in agreement with that. So in some ways, he did work across the aisle, but he was very even-handed when it came to how he developed his policies. If Republicans wanted to spend more money, he would easily say no to them, as well as Democrats. But he worked on issues with education. That was really one of the key things when I look back on him. He raised the per-pupil spending in the state, and higher education, which has been underfunded in subsequent years since Edgar left office and caused a lot of problems here in the state of Illinois. Higher education got a lot of what it wanted back when Jim Edgar was governor. Funding requests would be made every year, and pretty much those were rubber stamped, and the universities did, public universities in the state did very well. He also changed governorship of the universities to what we have now. So looking back on it, he was a lot different than what you might be expecting from Republicans these days. In some ways, he was different from what Democrats do these days as well.
Well, talk about his relationship with a very famous Democrat, Richard Daley, who was the Democratic mayor of Chicago when Edgar was governor. As I read about it, it sounds similar to what people said about Ronald Reagan and the House Speaker Tip O'Neill. They actually liked each other, even though they were in opposite parties.
I think Jim Edgar respected a lot of people in government, and I think that was just a different time in politics too, where you didn't let some professional disagreements impact personally how you felt about people. You might really argue like crazy during the day and then go out and have dinner with somebody, that same person at night. And I think that was similar there. They did run into a lot of different disagreements. There was no doubt about that. Chicago is the dominant city, of course, in the state of Illinois, but there's a lot of land outside of Chicago in this state. And Jim Edgar is what we would call a downstater. He is from East Central Illinois, the town of Charleston, and he. I think sometimes those two sides sometimes don't always see eye to eye because they're looking at it from different perspectives.
Well, I think that's a very interesting thing about him as well is a lot of the times the governors are people that live in Chicago. And every state, even people that are listening to this that are like, I'm not from Illinois, why do I care about downstate Illinois versus Chicago? Every state pretty much has a situation like this where there's a big city and then there's the rest of the state. And I think one of the things that Jim Edgar, one of his strengths was that he was able to have this relationship with the mayor of Chicago, but also be somebody who understood the importance of the rest of the state and the people who lived in the rest of the state, and that their concerns were different than people who lived in the major metropolitan center.
Yeah, I think that's true. He was educated at a public university, Eastern Illinois University, again in East Central Illinois. He comes from that background. That being said, he understood that Chicago's the economic engine for the state of Illinois. I think most people, if they're sensible, realize that. Chicago, how Chicago goes often is how Illinois goes. And he realized that. And I don't think Chicago fared poorly under Jim Edgar by any stretch. I think he just, again, had a broader view maybe than some people do.
I was talking to a politics reporter in California. I said, how come so many of the politicians that win statewide in California, like Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom and Dianne Feinstein back in the day and other people, how come they all come from the San Francisco Bay Area? Because it's a smaller city than LA. And this person said, because if you can win in San Francisco, where politics is like a knife fight, you can win statewide in California. I wonder if that's true in Illinois as well, with Chicago.
Yeah, I think maybe to some extent. I think also just, as the state has become more of a blue state. I think if you look back, I mean, Ronald Reagan, of course, was from Illinois, but he won this state when he ran for president. But, nowadays, this is a reliably blue state. When it comes time for the presidential candidates to go on the stump, we rarely see many of them because the state's not really in play outside of primaries. And, I think Jim Edgar, again, he was a social moderate. That also makes him much different than a lot of what you see in the Republican Party these days. He supported abortion rights. In fact, Charlie Wheeler, a colleague of mine who's been following state government for about 60 years, Charlie often says if Jim Edgar was running today, he would not win a Republican primary because his positions were maybe too close to the middle, too moderate. And that, I think, is a big difference from what we saw back then to what we see now.
And as you said, he was not a Trump Republican once that became a thing. We're going to talk about that when we come back with NPR Illinois Managing Editor Sean Crawford. Stay with us.
Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. This episode, we're talking about former Illinois Governor Jim Edgar, who passed away last week at the age of 79 after a battle with cancer. He was one of our first guests on The Middle. I'm joined by NPR Illinois managing editor Sean Crawford. Sean, listen to this clip of Edgar talking about Donald Trump.
I'm an Eisenhower, Ford, Bush Republican, and that's not the Republican Party today, unfortunately. The party is now a Trump party, and that's a fact of life. Maybe not quite as much in Illinois as it is in other states, but more so than I would have thought a couple of years ago.
Sean, as you say, he actually publicly supported Biden and Kamala Harris in their respective elections. Do you think that that was hard for him as a Republican?
I'm sure it was to some extent, but, Jim Edgar had been out of politics, per se, for many years. I mean, he left in 1999. He decided not to run for a third term as governor. He was encouraged many times to get back in. Republicans really have struggled in the state of Illinois since then, and I think they looked at him as maybe somebody that could save the party, bring him back and get back in control, and he refused each time. So I think he became less concerned with what people thought of him from a political standpoint. I think he just felt about talking what he believed in, and I think in this case that was probably what was going on there. He did not pull punches. He also fought with some other Republicans through the years, including our former governor Bruce Rauner at times, saying he thought the state should be doing certain things that Rauner was not focused in on. So again, I think that was probably Jim Edgar being real, being honest, and not really concerned about trying to win an election.
What about what he did after he left the governor's office? I know he started a fellows program to teach people about leadership and good governance.
Yes, he became a senior fellow at the University of Illinois' Institute of Government and Public Affairs. He helped create the what we call that Edgar Fellows program to train future leaders. Again, declining offers to run again, he stayed more as a retired statesman, if you want to call it that, somebody that was a political expert, could bring a lot of gravitas to some issues when he talked about them because he's dealt with them in these ways through the years. He would weigh in on talk shows and different news coverage on occasions as well, but he really did somewhat retire from public life and I think enjoyed his time a little bit more. Now, something I think we have to point out is Jim Edgar had a heart attack when he was governor, and it did change his focus, I believe, a bit, and I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't run. He was being looked at for a possible candidate for U.S. Senate at one point here in the state of Illinois, and certainly could have run and probably won a third term as governor, but I think he wanted to pull back a little bit, and I think health played a role in that.
What is a memory that you have about covering Jim Edgar?
Well, I don't know if it's one specific memory, but I think the one thing that kind of comes to mind to me is Jim Edgar was so different from both his predecessor and his successor. Jim Thompson was his predecessor, a very gregarious fellow. We talked about the types of politicians who could argue about something, then go out and have dinner and be good buddies with somebody. That was him. That was Jim Thompson. A likable fellow. Some people questioned if he was always keeping his eye on what was happening with government well enough, including the budget. George Ryan, I think you could make the same argument for, who followed Jim Edgar. But Edgar was very focused. He was, what we like to call a policy wonk. He was more concerned about how government was functioning, how this policy was going to impact people, the budget, as I mentioned. At the same time, he had these health issues that had come along, and I remember that there would be events at the governor's mansion, and either alcohol would not be served or it would be served very in very small amounts at these things. And in a town where putting deals together is often done over dinner and drinks and things of that nature, it became a different thing. So I think some people view Jim Edgar as stodgy at times. I think they viewed him as maybe boring at times because of this. He was not the guy to host the huge parties, and I think that's what I look back on with him. That when I think some people felt as though it just wasn't the same as it was before. It did get back to that for a while when George Ryan took office, but that Jim Edgar period was almost a dry period for most people in state government.
Wow. One more thing, Sean, you've been covering politics for so long in the state of Illinois. Other than Jim Edgar, how have things changed over the course of your career there, and the kinds of things that you have to cover now?
I think it's changed like it has at the national level. I don't know if Illinois is much different in the sense that the politicians that you deal with today, I think, some people may think this is good and then maybe not, but they are much more determined about certain causes and certain beliefs. And there's almost this mean-spiritedness, and this really can happen on both sides. And I think back when I was first covering it, again, it was a little bit more of let's work on this together. Let's try to compromise or meet in the middle and try to get something everybody can live with. And that included the hardcore conservatives and what we would call the lakefront liberals in Chicago. They would often try to work together. I don't see that near as much anymore. Some of that has to do with Democrats having a huge majority in the Illinois legislature, what we call a super majority. They can pass anything and override vetoes on their own. Republicans have really been shelved to some extent. Maybe they will get back to at least having some of that control again, but it looks like it may be a while before that occurs. So it's just been a different environment. Plus, we've had governors go to prison, including the successor, the two successors to Jim Edgar, Rod Blagojevich and George Ryan, both did prison time. So things have look a little bit different in Illinois now. A lot of mistrust of government that's out there among people. I think that's the biggest thing. And then, just journalism in general with social media and some of the other things that are going on, it really make it a very difficult beat to cover.
Yeah. That is Sean Crawford, the managing editor for NPR Illinois, talking with us about former Illinois Governor Jim Edgar, who died recently at the age of 79. He was one of our first guests on The Middle. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening to this episode. It was produced by Harrison Patino. Our next Middle episode is coming to your podcast feed later this week. We're going to be taking a look at the creative spirit that is so deeply a part of the American identity and ask you, why do you create? If you like this podcast, rate it where you get your podcast, write a review. Our theme music was composed by Noah Haidu. I'm Jeremy Hobson. Talk to you soon.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969, Malcolm and Martin are gone, America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.